Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sanam Anderlini. I'm the Director of the Center for Women, Peace and Security at the London School of Economics and the founder of the International Civil Society Action Network. Welcome to this 8th in our series of the coming of age of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda 21 in 2021. This event is hosted by the London School of Economics Center for Women, Peace and Security, ICANN, and the Center for Feminist Foreign Policy. The title and topic of today's discussion is Why Don't Women's Lives Matter? Ignoring Sexual Violence and Conflict. And I'm really proud and privileged to have as my guests Pramila Patten, of Mauritius, who was appointed as Special Representative on Sexual Violence and Conflict at the UN in 2017. Robinah Rubimbwa, founder and national coordinator of the Coalition for Action on Resolution 1325, COACT of Uganda, and Surood Mohammed Falih, Kurdish activist from Kirkuk, who was been involved very much and has had direct impact of the conflict in her country. She has a history of working with the UNFAO and has been a longtime activist on the role of women in peace and security and engagement in the implementation of Resolution 1325. Ladies, good morning, good afternoon. Really, really wonderful to have you here with me today for a conversation which I think is going to be difficult on many levels. These are very serious issues. But I also hope that as we go through the discussions, people will hear some of the solutions and some of the inspirational work that you're involved in. So with that, I'm going to kick off and maybe start with Surood. Surood, tell us in the context of Iraq right now, we're not really hearing much in the news internationally about how things are going, what's going on, what's happening, what are the security conditions, and particularly in terms of the experiences of women and girls and violence. What's the state of affairs right now? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sanam. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And my name is Surood. I'm from a city called Kirkuk, and Kirkuk is multi-ethnic, multi-religion city, working for Iraqi Al-Amal Association since 2005, and the condition of Iraq after the election, and 94 ladies that they win the parliament seat. And this is the first time of the Iraqi history that we have this range of the women in the parliament, because now we are above the quota as we have it in the Iraqi constitution. Before we had 83, but now we have 94 women that they win. And 33 of them, they win without the quota because they got the highest number, and that is mean the people they touched the woman effect on the ground and how they are looking for the benefit of the people. It's not about the benefit of the parties or political sides. So like if I want to talk about the condition that happened, the election, there is, I can say more than 30 type of the armed group in my city, and you know, that is increased the armed society, the militarized community, and that's effect on the security, because we can find on daily basis we have a crime, we have harassment, we have cases of the rape by the armed groups, and also like killing women. If it is on like honor crime or in other any other reasons. Also, we have a drugs problem that is it's more affected also on the society problem, and especially against women and girls. That's increased rape from the family members and harassment to the, especially through the like Corona time, because of the curfew and the families that they stayed inside the house, and that's increased the cases of the rape between the family member against the woman and the girls. And now still we are missing the legal framework of the family domestic violence, and this is more than 10 years. Like the activists, they have different initiative and ask the parliament. There is 2 different copies. This is one of the basic needs, so we can stand on it. And also, like when I talked about the environment for the women and the girls, like today I was talking about the lack number of the female police officers that we have it on our society. Also, when we talk about the government power, about the level of the government, because of the armed group and the influence from the other countries on our government, we don't have the power of the law, the enforcement, because until they threaten the police officers, they threaten the judge, and that is mean we don't have justice. And the people are scared. Like when I'm working on the GBV cases with the survivors, like in Kirkuk, we have 6 centers of the GBV, like women and girls safe space. I found, like several times, like 20, 30 armed group, they surrounded our centers because we kept the survivors with us until the police or others, people who they trust us, they come and they support us. Additional that they wrote badly about us on the Facebook. They start making cases against us in the court. They start recording case with the decision makers on us because we support the survivors. And when the woman for the first time at the liberation area who was under the ISIS control, we start awareness the woman and start asking about their rights. And through our lawyers, when the woman, they asking about the child alimony and the woman's, their rights in the court, they start against us and making different problems. Maybe they wanted to target, like my team's been in different bad situation. Also different times through the curfew, like when we went to help the survivors, they start holding the gun against like our social worker and me different times. And we didn't have right to ride like a car. We walked until we arrived to the survivor, but at the end we found that they are armed, armed husband, and he started holding the gun against us because we wanted to help the daughter or the wife. And this is the situation for women and the girls. And until now, we are missing for the women's shelter. And like every day we have cases, and we need to refer them from Kirkuk to other area in Kurdistan region. Because they have a shelter, their law, it is more respectful to the women and the girls when I compare it with the Iraqi federal law. And also the mentality of the people, it's different. And what we found also, there is a kind of the conflict. When we look to the law as a feminist, we can see it is different interpreted when the male, they look to the law. Because the man, they translate it on their, on their benefit, and that is meaning like until for the election, it should be like more than 100 women that they win without, without needing the quota, but because from the man perspective, they translate the law. All the most of the decision maker are from the man. Also, I wanted to talk about.
Can I just stop you there, because I'll come back to because you've brought up so many issues, right? That you have women. Finally, we're getting women past the quota in Parliament in terms of legislation, but the reality on the ground is that actually these armed forces that are tied to regional actors and others, in a way, have more power than the government. And as you're saying, women and girls are getting stuck in the middle of this. But I want to come back to the question of the curfews and so forth. But let me first go to Robinah. Robinah, when you listen to Surood talking about the challenges of being on the ground, of the sort of the broader security situation, and then the impact on women, how does that resonate for you in the context of Uganda, and also huge condolences for the bombings that happened in Kampala? I'm just wondering how on earth that's adding to the already existing issues that you've been dealing with in the COVID context. What's going on with women and girls and issues of sexual violence in Uganda? And I'll come back to both of you about these issues also affecting men and boys. But the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanam. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. I'm speaking from Kampala, Uganda, and I head a coalition of women's organizations that do peace building work from the grassroots to the continent of Africa. If you speak about state security, I would put us at about between 85 to 90%. At the moment, we did have the bombs, and the ISIS claimed responsibility. But since then, we have had a huge increase of security personnel patrolling the cities, not only Kampala, but the major cities. They are on the roads, they are moving around the suburbs of the city. They are picking up individuals that are associated with the Allied Democratic Front, which is the terrorist group that is particularly responsible for this. So I would say that right now that seems to be in control. But in terms of human security, especially for women and girls, that remains a huge challenge. We had elections in January this year, and all the months from about August last year until about April this year, there were very violent days. And much of this violence was specifically targeted to young women that were participating in political processes, and especially the young women that were linked with one of the candidates, popularly known as Bobi Wine. So we've had tens of cases of girls that still live very traumatized because they were sexually abused even after being tortured during arrest. They were sexually abused while they were in police custody. They were beaten. They were gang raped. It's horror stories. And Sanam, you know that we had a weekend with 20 of these girls where they told us all these stories. We had hoped that during that time, we would enable them to reach a process where they could go and support other girls, but we weren't able to even reach that point because they are brutally traumatized. So from that experience, again, coming in the middle of COVID, we already had huge escalation of domestic violence across the country. Our report, our annual crime report for 2020 reported a 60% increase in cases of domestic violence. And when it came to sexual violence against underage girls, it is just out of the world. It's just too much. So we've had that going on, then coupled with the violence from the election, but also, I mean, these are things that have really rolled back a lot of the progress that we in civil society had made in advocating for gender equality, in putting in place mechanisms for safety for women and girls. And then the fact that our schools have been closed practically since March 2020. Now, for most of the children, especially the girls, schools are the only place of safety that they have. So when the schools were closed, a lot of these girls were forced into child marriages. So we have a lot of cases of those. Many teenagers are pregnant, from 11-year-olds to 18-year-olds. They are pregnant, some of them have given birth. Every medical center reports increased numbers of teenagers that are coming for antenatal care. And those are those who go, because Uganda being what it is and our remoteness, the majority of them do not even go to a medical center. So that is a huge problem. We do not receive as many cases of domestic violence as we did at the peak of COVID during the lockdown, because women are out in the market. But with little girls, it is still challenging. And this is not helped by the fact that we have porous borders, especially between the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan. And here, along these borders, instability and violent conflict can flare up anytime. We had cases, we've had 3 cases of violence along the border with South Sudan this year alone. And we've had a food not moving, relief, supplies not moving, going to South Sudan or coming to refugee settlements in Uganda. And then we continue to have this huge influx of refugees, the majority of whom are women and girls, coming in from the Democratic Republic of Congo and also South Sudan. So currently we are hosting over 1.4 million refugees. And when you go to any of the refugee settlements, 75% of them are either women and girls or children, small children. So where are the men? So, these are challenges that we are currently facing, and this is the situation that we have.
Thank you, Robinah. And I'm going to come back to you about this issue of how girls, as you said, underage girls, both in the case of Iraq, but also in the case of Uganda, we're seeing them being the kind of the receiving end of all of these types of challenges. Pramila, I wanted to come to you, sitting where you are at the UN, you hear these things. I'm sure you're hearing it from many other countries. And then we have the situation of Afghanistan, which has just been devastating in terms of rollbacks and in terms of the kind of the world really betraying, if you want, Afghan women. Can you tell me what you've been dealing with? COVID, all these issues. I mean, what's it like to be sitting from your angle and your perspective on the world, and being the person who's meant to be dealing with prevention of sexual violence against women and girls?
Well, Sanam, good morning, good afternoon to all. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm delighted to be part of this conversation. And I really want to start by commending the work of Surood and Robinah, who has really exposed the challenges that they face in their daily work. And the stories shared by both Robinah and Surood resonates with me, because I see the same pattern in my 19 conflict and post-conflict countries. From the perspective of the UN, from where I sit as the special representative of the Secretary General on sexual violence in conflict, it can be distressing, but also rewarding. As you know, this is a young mandate. My mandate was only established in 2009. With the adoption of Security Council Resolution 1888. And it was just a year before, with Resolution 1820, that for the first time, the Security Council saw war through the eyes of women and girls whose bodies have been part of the battlefield. And with this new approach, they affirmed that there could be no security without women's security. And they saw sexual violence, they elevated sexual violence to the paramount peace and security body of the United Nations, notably the Security Council. We have a remarkable normative framework. After the Security Council Resolution 1888, which established my mandate, we have had no less than 10 resolutions of the Council on women, peace and security, and 6 very specifically on conflict-related sexual violence. But, there have been also a lot of progress in terms of institutional arrangements. In addition to the creation of my office, the Security Council also established a team of experts on the rule of law and sexual violence in conflict, for example, to strengthen institutional safeguards against impunity at the national level. They have called for women protection advisors to be deployed to the field to enhance our monitoring, reporting and response. But in terms of operational impact, we see that sexual violence persists. Weave conflict, and we see that wherever there is militarization, conflict, sexual violence occurs. And it is true that on the one hand, we are reaching out and supporting thousands of survivors who had once been invisible and inaccessible. It is true that peacekeepers are now systematically trained on how to prevent, deter, and respond to sexual violence as part of their operational readiness to protect civilians. It is true that we have tools like sanctions. There are standalone designation criteria on sexual violence in sanctions regime for a number of countries, as Central African Republic, DRC, Libya, Somalia, and South Sudan. But as civilians continue to suffer sexual violence, it is not for a lack of international norms and institutions to protect them, but it's because the norms are inadequately implemented and enforced. And it is also because existing institutions are not backed with sustained political and financial support. And I think it was Surood who mentioned state and non-state armed groups. And one challenge that I have is that non-state armed groups constitute the majority of the perpetrators that are actually listed in the annual report of the Secretary General. But at the same time, leveraging behavioral change on the part of non-state actors to ensure that they comply with international norms is a critical challenge for my mandate. I do engage with state actors. I have signed political agreements in 11 countries. And we work on an implementation plan, and we work on a roadmap. We identify the priorities. But engaging with non-state actors, and to get them to make commitments to prevent sexual violence is much, much harder. I think it's a fact that sexual violence is a cheap tool. And that's why it continues to be used as a tactic of war, of terror, and also of political repression, I think, as Robinah has actually highlighted. And it is also a fact that justice is the rare exception, and impunity is very much the rule, in spite of some gains that we have made over the years in a number of countries, such as DRC and South Sudan. But it's very much a cost-free. It's very much cost-free to rape. That's why when I took office in 2017, I set 3 strategic priorities for the mandate. Firstly, prevention through justice and accountability. Secondly, for me, and again, Surood and Robinah have talked about survivors. For me, the mandate was created for survivors. A woman or a girl, a man or a boy, and has the face of a survivor. And that it's important to have a survivor-centered approach. And last but not least, sexual violence in conflict does not happen in a vacuum. and that it is critical we are to prevent sexual violence, to address the root causes with gender inequality and discrimination, marginalization and poverty being the invisible drivers. And I'm very happy that with 2 years of advocacy, in 2019, the Security Council adopted Resolution 2467, which really articulates my 3 strategic priorities and recognize, for example, for the first time, different groups of victims, such as men and boys, children born of sexual violence, and call for a survivor-centered approach in both prevention and response, calls for a comprehensive legal framework, both substantive and procedural, addresses security sector reform that is called for, is a very comprehensive resolution, but which now has to be implemented. And that's why moving forward beyond Resolution 2467, my focus is to ensure that we move from resolution to solution, from commitments to compliance.
And it brings me to my next question in a way. I'm going to switch the flow a little bit, but it's that, you know, as you say, we have this incredible normative framework, and Robinah and Surood, you've talked also about the importance of having legislative frameworks and systems in place and so forth. And yet the reality on the ground, whether state or non-state, it's really not, it's not kind of taken as seriously as it should be. You know, I bring this to the sort of the Afghan case, that Afghan women were, I don't know what else they needed to do to warn against what the Taliban was bringing and to demand to be involved in the negotiations and around, you know, to bring up the issue of civilian protection. And yet neither our governments nor, of course, the non-state actors are really taking this seriously. So the question, the reason why we frame the discussions as, do women's lives really matter, is that where are we now? I mean, it's great to have all the talk and all the laws, but where is the money? Where is the backup? Where is the real commitment to the solutions, as you said, Pramila? You know, where is that happening? Robinah, did you want to come in on that one in terms of sort of how you see whether lives matter or not, or how we should be reframing, maybe when we think about kind of, you know, justice and accountability, what other systems and mechanisms, cultural norms, et cetera, do we need to harness to bring this issue that, you know, why don't women's and girls' lives matter so much? So you're muted.
When I think about this question, are women even seen? I mean, culturally in Uganda, women were there to be seen, but never to be heard. You dressed up and sat quietly. If you were lucky, next to your husband, but if unlucky, you would sit on the floor somewhere. That mentality has really not changed in the minds of the system, because I find that we are dealing with a system that is very patriarchal, and it is informed by the culture in our societies. It is informed by our faiths, and you can think of any faith, you know, across the board. So we continue to remain women in the background, and it doesn't matter what you do. If we can have women in parliament of Uganda have reported being sexually violated by their own colleagues when they travel for conferences. A male colleague has a room next door to yours. He knocks on your door and says, I'm so, you think, oh, that's a work day. Let's have a discussion. They've come to attack you. So if it happens to women who are in parliament, then what about these? What about women like us? What about local level women on the ground who get up in the morning to dig in their showers and go fetch water, fetch firewood? So it's like the system continues to regard women as objects. And this is in spite of the good legal frameworks that most of our countries have. Uganda has a most gender sensitive constitution. We have very good laws. Like we even have a Domestic Violence Act passed in 2010. We have laws against sexual violence. We have very stringent punitive measures for perpetrators. But when the system makes it impossible for a woman that has been violated to access justice, then that woman will remain invisible. Because who is responsible for the justice? The majority are men. Who is investigating? The majority are men. Where are women in the security sector that could work with our criminal investigation department? The majority of them are men. So they will listen to a fellow man. They are potential violators themselves. So when you go to court, the magistrates court, the high court, whatever court, how many are women that sit in those courts? So who is listening to this woman? In Uganda, we have a structure that starts from the village. They are local council courts. They have a chairperson. It is very difficult for a woman even to be elected as the chairperson of a village to chair the local council court. So if the men are the ones that are dispensing justice, and the majority of them are potential perpetrators, it's no wonder that women don't matter. So until we get women into these places, into these positions that matter, decision-making positions in the security sector, in our police, in our military, in prisons, the prison service, I've told you cases of women violated when they're by prison's orders. Until we get women of influence in our judicial system and process, then women won't matter, because it is informed by our culture, by our faiths, and it is all patriarchal.
Thank you so until we get women into positions of power and influence in the security sector and governance, women's lives won't matter. Surood, I'm going to come to you on that, because you were nodding as Robinah was speaking, but also you raised the problem that we're now, even if we have them, you've got, as you said, 94 women now coming into parliament. If your security arena is now overwhelmed with armed non-state actors, as you mentioned, and as Pramila mentioned, what happens then? I mean, why, going down to the cultural level, why don't these armed groups, these men who are part of these movements also, why doesn't it matter to them? I mean, can we just blame culture and say that we can't deal with, the men are, it's a lost cause? Or how do you see this kind of playing out in terms of what we need to do to address the fact that we're talking about little girls, right? It's these big men with all their ego or whatever the masculinity that they're supposed with their weapons, but their targets, as you both mentioned, are often young girls. Why doesn't it matter to them? And what's the cultural context? Is this a new development? Has it always been underlying in Iraq, or is this something that's happened in the last 20 years for you?
Yeah. Part of Kirkuk was under the ISIS control maybe more than 4 years, and like the ISIS, they wasn't just an armed group, terrorist armed group. It's a mentality. Now the ISIS is gone. Still, there is a movement of the ISIS around, but it's in the man. Most of the decision maker, they have the ISIS mentality, because now we say like the ISIS, they left, but still, every day there is a rape cases from the armed group, and they will solve it in tribal law. It is they pay money to the family that they rape their daughters. It is, and later they will blame her. And they will like she's still alive, but she died because they lock on her inside the house. They will not let her to get out. This is part of our culture, and this is being accepted by the government. Sometimes the court, they cannot solve the problem. They say, go and solve it tribally. Later you can come and ask for your right, because it is not the rule of the law. It's not from the government side. It's not controlling. It's the tribal law. This is the role of the tribal. So this is from a side, and also, you know, because the police are men, the judge are men. So because of the corruption that we have, they change all the evidence, they change all the witnesses, you know, everything. It is just by the bribe, all the case, the document will be changed. And this is one of our struggles when we lobbying. And until, like, if I went to be a witness, I should be hidden witness. And this is the way that we are using when we like lobbying some of the cases. In the hidden way, we go to the judge and we give them all the evidence and the paper that we have, because our life is not secure here. So in different ways, the women and the girls, they are, you know, they are part of the corruption, like when we solve it on the tribal reconciliation. So everything that they paid their daughter today, like some of the guys told me, in their village around Hawija, when the head of the tribe gets sick, one of the father of the tribe went to him and give him her daughter. So it is like a gift for his recovery. So you can imagine the mentality. So when he gets recovered from the sickness, he has a new wife, you know, a teenager, and the different from the age, he's like a grandfather for her. This is the mentality still we have it. This is like women and girls are not a human, you know. When we talk about the humanity, it is that it's not mean women and girls. It is just a man. It is male. You know, this is the biggest problem. But you know, through the different work that we have it and the impact from the more than 10 years that we work in the ground, and after we create different women networks in all the suburbs around the Kirkuk, we lobby the tribes, we lobby the government, and you know, we have our voice, but we are scaring also from a side, but we are shout. But when I be alone, you know, they can't target me easily. But when I be 100 women, so they get scared from me. So like through our work, like and our woman peace table, we awareness the woman, and we choose the women leaders in the society, so they can be part of this woman network. And after they start targeting us and targeting our reputation, we start creating man network also to involve man, enlightened men who are believing what we are doing, and we involve them in our movement so they can be part of our process. So, and also we have some police officers, we have teachers, writers, journalists, you know, activists. They supported us, you know. Now we have a like a good base between the society, but still they are stronger because they have a gun, so they are empowered, you know. When we are defending with the law, with the pencil, but they are like against us with the gun and with their decision. And there is a difference. They have a money, but we don't have the money. We know today we were talking about the peace society in Kirkuk, how we can involve women and girls, and how we can increase their voice, and how we can, like, we have a program in the radio we call her voice is peace. So how we can raise the woman voice in that, you know, this is very important, and we need to encourage this kind of the movement to encourage. And like one of the questions that I read it there, so it mentioned that we have a good, like in somehow we have a good constitution, and like we CEDAW and child convention right, you know, we have different international law, but where is the implementation, you know? And also we have a statement between the Iraqi government and the SGBV, UN representative, you know, for the SGBV, but still, where is the implementation? You know, there is many things is written, but it's missing the implementation in the ground. So it is very important that the Iraqi government, the decision maker, they are not shaming from the Iraqi people, but they are shaming from the international, you know, lobby and UN actors. And I hope you can continue your support, you know, and asking the government, what happened to that statement? Where is your implementation for the CEDAW? And what happened to the Iraqi constitution that you have it? It's very important. And when any embassy or any UN representative, they asking the Iraqi government, you know, next day we can see the difference act, you know, this is important for us.
Thank you. Thank you. And actually, I'm going to come to Pramila with a slightly, I will bring up this question of, you know, how important that international eye and focus and, you know, whether it's pressure, whether it's encouragement, however, incentives, however one wants to think about it, how important that is for various countries. But I'm going to just maybe take a different angle now and come to a more personal perspective. When I see the three of you and I think about the kind of work you're dealing with, the kind of issues and kind of stories that you hear and people that you know, I mean, all of us in this field of women, peace and security, we come across information that we can never unknow. When you know about rape cases or when you know about how people are being affected, it's not something that goes away. You can't erase it out of your memory. And it affects us in different ways. So I just wanted to kind of ask you on a personal level, Pramila, what led you into this work? How on earth, you know, if you look back and say to your 18-year-old self or your 19-year-old self and look, did you ever imagine that you would be doing this? And what's it like? How did you get into this field? How do you keep going on a personal level, on, you know, on the hard days, on the good days? Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your question, because in fact, my career, I was called to the bar in 1982 and specialized in commercial law and wanted to have a commercial law practice. So I returned to my country, Mauritius, in 1982 and was focusing really on a corporate practice. But soon, and I did end up practicing corporate law for 35 years, but my career took a dual track out of my interest, passion, I must say, in work around promotion and protection of women's human rights and the advancement of gender equality in law, policy and practice. My work as a lawyer enabled me to observe on a daily basis the importance of equality for the law for women. I saw how gender bias and stereotypes were impacting on women's access to justice. So in an effort to alter the legal landscape and raise awareness about women's rights, I founded an NGO known as Women's Legal Action Watch. And I also got involved at the regional level and international level with a number of networks. At the regional level, I served for 9 years approximately on each network, Women in Law and Development in Africa, WILDA, which was based in Zimbabwe at the time, and the African Center for Democracy and Human Rights Studies based in the Gambia, and also International Women's Rights Action Watch based in Minnesota. And my interest in public policy also led me to serve as an advisor to the Minister of Women's Rights, Child Development and Family Welfare. In 2000, I was very much seen as an activist. I was an activist, and in 2000, I was appointed by the government of Mauritius to chair 2 task forces, one on discriminatory laws against women and one on children's rights, to harmonize laws with the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which we had just ratified. I was also called to draft some important pieces of legislation: sex discrimination bill, protection from domestic violence bill. Then 2003, I was elected. 2002, I was elected on the CEDAW committee. I served until 2017. And in that capacity, my focus has always been on women, peace, and security. And I was the one to initiate the general recommendation on women in conflict prevention, conflict and post-conflict situation, because I was like devastated by the fact that states parties, 187 states parties, did not see the link to report on conflict or post-conflict and measures that they were taking to implement. They did not see the relevance of CEDAW. And I recall it was Sri Lanka that was an eye-opener for me. Sri Lanka, the report of Sri Lanka was examined, and there was nothing in the report about the very, very difficult post-conflict phase and last phase of the conflict. So that's when I took that initiative, and that general recommendation was adopted in 2013. I was also a member of the high-level advisory group for the global study on the implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1325. And that study presented clear and compelling evidence that women's protection and equal participation is a force multiplier for national and international peace and security. I was very sensitive. I reacted very much when there was the appalling massacre and mass rape in the Guinean capital of Conakry, in the stadium on 28th of September 2009, 2 days before Resolution 1888 was adopted. And I was then on the CEDAW committee and got a statement out. And then I was appointed by the then UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, to serve as a commissioner on the International Commission of Inquiry. And we came up with a report which really captured the sexual violence. And I recall going back to present the report to the Secretary General, and he wanted to know more about my background, because he realized that it was the first report where there was a focus on the sexual violence, because during the massacre, many men were killed, etc. There were many violations of human rights, but sexual violence had its place. So, and then I was appointed in 2017. I never imagined that would be that I would quit the bar and would actually work at the UN. And but looking back, I think this is the experience that I bring in discharging my current mandate, which is focused on prevention and response to the scourge of sexual violence. I bring this, I'm the third special representative appointed by the Secretary General. Unlike my two predecessors, I bring this legal background, I bring the gender expertise, and I think that my legal experience does help and does inform the political advocacy with governments or parties to conflict, national human rights and judicial institutions. Just to tell you that, for example, I work with a range of actors. I have signed frameworks of cooperation with the CEDAW committee, with Committee on the Rights of the Child, and I'm working very closely with them. And you mentioned Afghanistan. In the context of that framework of cooperation with CEDAW, I got the committee at the last session to request an exceptional report from Afghanistan, because Afghanistan has ratified CEDAW without reservations, and I was instrumental in that work back in 2003 to help them to ratify without reservations, help them with the preparation of their report. And I think on Afghanistan, it's important that we do not only focus on, say, education of girls or women's employment, but that we look at the centrality of women's and girls' rights. And I work with a range of stakeholders, including religious leaders. I have we commemorated the 10th anniversary of the mandate in 2019, and I have launched a global champion initiative. And recently in June, I appointed the Secretary General of the Interparliamentary Union as a global champion. And we are working very, very closely together in improving legislative framework. For example, in June, on the International Day on the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict, I also launched a model legislative provisions on investigation and prosecution, a very comprehensive piece of work that will really help member states to have a comprehensive framework in place. And with the IPU, I'm rolling out this model legislative provisions in the countries, because all the political agreements that I have signed, the 11 countries, contain one priority area being justice sector and legal framework. So that's where I come from.
And it's, you know, it's very important, and I'm going to come to Robinah and Surood with the same question. I think it's you know, when we look back historically, or when we see these developments, any of these resolutions, any of these legal frameworks, whether it's at the national level or at the global level or at the local level for that matter, we forget that there are people who are pushing and working nonstop. And so to actually hear how you, as in the capacity and the roles that you've had, have been instrumental in getting these, you know, legal frameworks on paper, on however one wants to call it, but it's so important. So thank you for actually giving us that sort of comprehensive, you know, tour de force of your career and how you got here. And especially as women, people don't necessarily always talk about what they've achieved. So I think this is very important. Robinah, I'm going to come to you. Tell us a little bit about what got you here. So, you know, how did life start for you, and how did you end up becoming such a critical leader in this work in Uganda, but also internationally, in terms of your connectivity and the experiences and so forth? Thank you.
I guess I have always been drawn to women, because as a teenager, I thought I would be a gynecologist, but that didn't happen. So I became a teacher of English language and literature, which I enjoyed tremendously until my teaching career was cut short. In 1980, we had general elections in Uganda. And those elections were rigged. I was a young mother of a baby girl who was 1 year and 11 months, and I had a baby boy who was born at the time of elections, actually. So 2 months after the elections, because my husband had voted a new political party at the time that became very unpopular after the elections. And the government that won decided that everybody who had voted for that party was a member of the rebel movement. The leader of the political party was our current president. And you know, there were all these young elite men teaching at universities, and my husband was one of them. So when Museveni went to the bush in February 1981, then the government started arresting all these university professors. So my husband fled Uganda into exile. Actually, a friend who was a minister in the Obote government came home one evening and said that they would pick him up the following day and took him to the airport. He left me with these two little babies. The youngest then was about a month, about 2 months. And so I stayed behind. I didn't know where he had gone. I didn't hear from him. But 6 months later, I got a letter from him telling me what to do and how to get to him in another country. So I started that process. I thought I had enough money, but in the midst of getting documentation, our currency was devalued. So the money I had was no longer enough to buy myself and my kids air tickets. So I had to go by road. And a journey from Kampala to the nearest border that I knew, Kenya, would normally take like 4 hours. It took me 3 days to get through the roadblocks and all that, carrying 2 babies and their luggage. I couldn't carry my own luggage at all. And I remember when we got out of the bus on the Uganda side of the border, there is about 2 kilometers that you have to walk, the no man's land, to reach Kenya. And my little girl couldn't walk it, and I couldn't carry her because I was carrying the baby and holding their suitcase. So my little girl started crying. And I felt so sad, and I too started crying. By the time we reached the Kenya border, I was crying, my baby girl was crying, my little baby here was crying, and we were all exhausted. It took us 3 days to make a journey of 4 hours. And so I was in exile for 7 years. I have lived as a refugee. I know what it means. And while I was in exile, I lost a brother I loved, the one I came after from my mother's womb. He was my closest friend. And I didn't even know that he had died. So when we returned, and I found that my brother had died, but I was also still traumatized by that journey that I had to make with my 2 children. And I decided that if I could do something to prevent just one more woman from facing what I faced, then I would go for it. So when I returned, I got a job with Plan International as a development worker. And my role was a women's program. They called me Women and Youth Coordinator. And I was doing a livelihoods program for women and youth. And I thought I found my calling. You know, I could see how life changed if you gave women a little money, or a heifer, or a goat. So I could see, and I appreciated that. But then I rejoined the government and went into communications, and I worked with the Ministry of Finance. So I was exposed to policy development. And then I realized how gender blind all our policies were. And I could still think about my work with Plan and how women were so poor. While we had roads and these structures, there was nothing going to women on the ground. And then my friends, I had 2 good friends that you know as Sanam, Ruth and Jessica. They were in this amazing organization, and they held gender talks every Thursday. So they invited me while I worked with the Ministry of Finance to start attending gender talks. That is how I ended up going with them to visit IDP camps in northern Uganda during the war with the Lord's Resistance Army. That's how I ended up being a part of the group that walked to Juba for the peace talks. That's when I found my passion. I wouldn't be doing anything else. It is this work. So in retirement, I established COACT, which has now become a huge alliance of all these peace building organizations, including Care International, by the way. And so the work continues. I love working with women and girls. I like to see them smile. I want to influence policies so that they can work for them. The national policies, the regional policies, and the global policies. So I'm in the right place now.
Thank you. And when you say that, it's just, I think it gives everybody a sense of inspiration and hope to that. And again, the journey from a teacher to this incredible national work that you're doing and the international experiences. Surood, does this resonate with you? How did you end up doing the kind of work that you're doing? Did you expect this 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's so funny when I want to talk about that because it's history. It's part of what I've been related to the city for a while. That being obliged to displace to another city, we went to the Erbil for around more than 12 years. I stayed in Erbil, and after I graduated from the college, because through the uprising 1991, I lost 3 members of the family. 7 people around me, they died. I've been shot twice, yeah. After we've been displaced and after removing Saddam, we returned back to the Kirkuk, and I start working voluntarily with the people because at the time I've been displaced in Erbil. I worked for the UN for a while, and excuse me for my bad English because I don't use it, just like maybe few times a year I use it because I start forgetting. And after we returned back to Kirkuk, I started working voluntarily then. Since 2005, I'm working for Iraqi Al-Amal Association until today. In the beginning, I was alone, but now 85 staff, I have it with me, working with me. We are holding we can talk with the voice of the women and girls in the Kirkuk. And like when I walk to the government building, this is very important for me. Everybody are scaring because they know we are not afraid and we are talking about them. And they tell me, Surood, just let me this month to continue my work because I have everything about everybody here. And the people, they give it to me. So it's to defend myself, with the official evidence so that they can protecting me. And also there is a good people, in all the government people, government department. So it's like by the Iraqi law, we cannot deal officially with the government department, but we create a personal relation with everybody since that we started working until today. So the head of the tribe, the religion man, everybody, they knows us and they respect us because my grandfather, he was one of the religion master here in Kirkuk. I don't know if you know about the Naqshbandiya. So he's very unknown and everybody knows him. So when I start working, this is the culture here. They asked who you are, who's your father. So in the beginning, my father, until he was shaming my daughter working with the NGOs, because the reputation was bad. So I said, I'm Surood, until I didn't use my father's name. And now when my father, after all that years, when he's goes to any place, he said, he's the Surood's father, and it's being changed, everything. And now they start supporting me because I create their reputation for the NGOs, the independent one, because most of the NGOs here are related to the different parties, different, they use them. So it's not easy to keep your independent here. It's not easy to work with the GBV cases and SGBV, especially in this society, the culture, the culture against us, the law also, and all the environment, the armed and the corruption, But thanks to God, and this is what I believe, because I'm not working for myself. I'm working for people's right. And this is when I walk to any checkpoints, and until if it's closed, so I can see it's opening for me. So they know that I'm going to defend for one of the survivors' right. So this is more important for me, and we got respect for that. And thanks for the ICANN. Thanks for everybody who are working to to raise the voice for the people who don't have voice, you know.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Surood. And it's what you say about the trust that you have, who you are, and how your father now says that he is Surood's father, as opposed to, I think these cultural connections, I think, are so important in terms of the kinds of issues we're dealing with. I'm conscious of time, and I'm going to share with you some of the questions that have come up in the chat, and one of my own questions as a final question. But just if you feel like answering any of them in particular, please just say. So we have a question from David Walter from Birkbeck Alumni, who says, do you think that violence is a class issue? And when we're talking about number of women in parliament and government, he says, does it tell us that violence is a class issue? Do you believe that women in governance and social elite circles are also implicit in violence against women? Do women also enable perpetrating violence against women, or if we have more women in politics, is it going to change? That's one question. A second question is from Laura Forsyth from the Natural Resource Institute at the University of Greenwich, who says she's interested to know if agriculture and natural resource-based livelihoods is an important means for enabling survivors and also as a prevention mechanism. And I think that's a good question to all of you, actually, in terms of how do we, we have partners in Cameroon who have been helping displaced women with agricultural work to prevent them from getting involved in sex work as a means of survival. So I'm just curious about whether you think that kind of livelihoods and issues matters. And Robinah, you mentioned that before as well. And then Alessandra Biagioni is asking about the question of what else is the UN doing in terms of conflict-related sexual violence committed by UN peacekeeping personnel, and I think that's probably coming to you, Pramila, but also I think Robinah, given that Uganda has had, has been involved in peacekeeping, I think it's an important question. And then my own, question maybe at the end of this is to say, share with us some of the really innovative solutions and transformative work that you feel that you're doing right now. Like what's if I wanted to say what's, one of you mentioned peace circles and working with men, at the local level, what do you think the world should know about how it's possible to change mentalities and culture and so forth? Are we able to make headway in the shift that we're talking about? So these are the questions. I don't know if anybody who would like to start, or if you have questions to each other. Yes, go ahead, Pramila, go ahead.
Okay, maybe I'll respond to the last question about transformative work. I have a mandate to provide coherent and strategic leadership on both prevention and response. And over the past 4 years, I have come to realize that although it is a crime as old as the history of war itself, but CRSV is preventable, not an inevitable byproduct of war, and is never an accident. Yet we have focused more on response, and we have used the terminology of prevention and response interchangeably. So what I have been doing over the past year, and in fact it was during the COVID time, is to look at the array of prevention measures, tools, and practices that we have, prevention per se, that have proven successful in helping to protect civilians and to prevent the occurrence of sexual violence. But also my research led me to understand that for many reasons, especially lack of sustainable funding for long-term programmatic prevention work, much of the responses have focused primarily on intervening with affected individuals and helping survivors after the violence has occurred. And of course, I am not saying that these strategies are not essential to mitigate devastating mental, physical, social, and economic effects for victims experiencing sexual violence. But I think it is important to continue, although it is important to improve these responses, I think there is a compelling need to invest more on prevention. And for me, that's where I want to the shift that I want to see in this mandate. And in discharging my mandate, I'm like guided by a firm belief and conviction that the earlier and the deeper the seeds of conflict-related sexual violence prevention are sowed, the better and more sustainable their fruits will be. So through UN Action Network, which I chair, and which is a network which comprises of 20 UN entities and agencies, my office is working on a prevention framework, and that framework will be launched early next year. And the purpose really of the framework is to assist all relevant actors, stakeholders, more especially government, but also UN agencies, to improve and expand their programmatic efforts to better prevent CRSV. And I have engaged with a number of donors who are very keen to support the framework, which I will roll in a number of countries. And the framework precisely is intended to be a roadmap to address prevention efforts and to serve as a tool for more broad-based initiative. Because for me, the goal of the mandate is to stop sexual violence from happening in the first place. And prevention efforts should ultimately result in a decrease in the number of individuals who perpetrate sexual violence and the number of individuals who are victims. So that's my big project for the years to come.
And I'm gonna pass the floor to Robinah to say, but also to if we have time to come back to you to say, where does partnership with civil society come into this? Because as we've heard from Surood and Robinah, one of the biggest problems, and it's coming up in the questions as well, is that if you have the state actors actually either complicit in sexual violence or corruption and so forth, and the real work is being done locally, kind of sub-state, how do we bridge the gap between what's happening at the UN level and your great work and the work on the ground? And Robinah, did you want to answer also kind of in terms of what you're doing and how that might link to what Pramila's doing? You're muted.
Yes, I'll go there, but I also wanted to speak on whether violence against women is a class issue. Sanam, our studies in Uganda have shown that violence against women and girls is not a class issue. We find that women whose career becomes more successful than the husband's career, they become victims of violence from their partner, from their intimate partner. It could be sexual violence, it could be battering, or it could just be emotional abuse. But it happens. The difference, and this is remarkable, the difference is that the elite women do not talk about their experiences. And because they don't talk about the experiences, the general belief is that they don't suffer from violence, but they actually do. And one of the things we do is to make sure that the local level women, the ordinary woman, can report. They have the courage to report. They have the courage to speak out. But we also bring them to the national arena so that they can speak to kind of inspire the elite, my colleagues, to also speak about the violence that they experience. So I wanted to speak about that. And number two, talking about the things that we do to address some of these. I think for us, the few things that we have done that could easily be replicated, if you can call it that. One is localizing the laws, the policies that protect women and girls. We have found this with our national action plan, working with the local authorities to address domestic violence, to address violence against women, to address violence against children at the community level, so that they develop local action plans that increase violence, that increases prevention and also increases response. This year, we have supported 3 women's groups to develop position papers. They have had time to think through the drivers of violence against women in their communities, and also to look at how those are manifested and the impact they've had on women. So they have documented that in a position paper and made specific recommendations of what they want the local authorities to do. And we have enabled them to present these position papers to the district council. That is powerful. And these position papers have actually been adopted by the district councils. This is an approach that can be replicated. The other one is the women's peace tables. And right now we are working with women refugees to develop this concept further of women's peace tables. The women from the local community come together. They identify, it could be one form of violence against women or all of them, and they sit down and they discuss it. They identify the perpetrators. They name the women that have been affected will come and tell them. And they document the impact that has had not only on the women themselves, but on the community and all the women around. And they also make recommendations, and they call a local leader. They call the local leader to come and listen to them. So they present their position to the local leader, and the local leader can choose to call in the perpetrator or the perpetrators. They can choose to call in a mediator if the case is of a civil nature, but they can also immediately go and arrest the perpetrator and take them to the police. Dealing with cases of sexual violence against children, the sexual violence against children has been very well addressed in those communities that have a peace table. Battering of women comes to the peace table. Economic violence comes to the peace table. So these peace tables can also be replicated, in different communities and at the different levels.
Thank you very much. That's great to know. And I'm conscious of time. So Surood, does local women's peace tables and working with local authorities, you mentioned this as well, is this the solution upwards, and how do we then close the gap to make sure that, again, internationally and globally, you're getting the support that you need from our UN colleagues and others?
We need different support, like international lobby. We need to support now the new parliament member, the female parliament member, the 94, because they don't have any experience. We started as activists from Khartoum to surrounding them because they are part of some of the political actors. So it's important so that they can holding the society problems so they can defend on the rights of the people. And we start telling them how we've been supporting them, how we've been advocating for voting for the woman, and because you are having our name. So it's important that the international empower to lobby the Iraqi government, to empowering the Iraqi female members. Also, it's important also to support the NGOs here in Iraq, because we are working in the shadowing side and in hidden side. And it's important also to follow with the implementing the law and the official statement for the SGBV, because that is very, as my colleague said, most of the perpetrators are from the security force members, and this is what it's the same in the same society. And for us, we are looking for the quality of the women that who are they win with the parliament seat. It's important to empowering them. Also, Iraq now we have the second NAP for the 1325, but it is just in the paper. It's not showing anything in the ground, and it's important to follow with the Iraqi parliament. What happened to that national action plan for the Iraq? Yeah.
Ladies, thank you so much. I'm conscious of time. We are 4 minutes over our time, but I wanted to first of all thank you for a really extraordinary conversation as a wrap up to the year, the series, and of course in the context of the 16 days of action on prevention of violence against women. And I hope that we will be able to continue the collaboration offline as well, this kind of the local to the international level. And I'm left with, number one, of course, the question of prevention is much better than trying to deal with a problem at the end. But also this idea that we need to be shifting the shame and shifting the fear of sexual violence away from potential victims and actual survivors to the potential perpetrators. That the fear should be, the fear of God should be in them before they actually perpetrate any form of violence, and the shame should be on them as opposed to the survivors. And as you say, when you engage people at a local level and really address these things, you can change attitudes. So that one-on-one, unfortunately, sort of small scaling across as opposed to scaling up, or bottom up as well as top down, is such an important series of strategies. But thank you so much. Thank you for your time. And thank you for everybody who was listening. I'm sorry I didn't get through all the questions, and I hope to see you in 2022 with the reiteration of the series. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Pramila. Thank you, Surood. Thank you, Robinah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.